All rise.
Be seated, please. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the case you're trying today is a criminal case. Seated close to your counsel table is Mr. Raymond Furr. He is the defendant in the case. Ms. Kathleen Dyer is seated next to him. She is his defense attorney. Seated at the far end of the counsel table is Mr. Jenna Royce, who is the deputy district attorney for the state of Oregon, representing Coos County. Mr. Furr is charged with two crimes in this case. They allege as follows. They're both alleged that this events occurred on November 2nd, 2016. In one charge, they allege that on November 2nd, 2016, he recklessly created a risk of public inconvenience, annoyance, and alarm by creating a hazardous condition by an act that the defendant was not licensed or privileged to do so. The second count says on that same date that he had unlawfully created the beauty and appearance of property or detract from the safety of property by intentionally discarding, dispositing trash, garbage, debris, or refuse upon a public highway. Mr. Furr has entered a plea of not guilty. That means he denies the allegations made against him. He is presumed to be innocent, and that presumption stays with him until such time, if it arrives, that you are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty. The fact that he has been charged with these crimes cannot be considered by you as indicating that he is guilty of them. This is merely the formal process of bringing the charges before you. You then decide whether he is not guilty or guilty of the charges. The state has the burden of proving his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He has no burden of proving or disproving anything in the case.
All right.
Be seated, please. Call your first witness.
The state called John Sweet. Mr. Sweet, can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
John W. Sweet, S-W-E-E-T.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm a county commissioner here at Coos County.
Okay. How long have you been employed with them?
It was 4 years, 4 years and a couple of months now.
Now, what are your duties as a commissioner? What do you do?
Well, we have a multitude of duties. We act as kind of the administrator of the county, and as such, we oversee the departments report to us about what they're doing and their budgets. Answer a lot of citizen complaints. Don't get many compliments.
As part of your job, are you able to approve or deny certain budgetary decisions?
Yes, we are.
Now, how do you know the defendant in this case, Mr. Furr?
I first heard about Mr. Furr on a phone call that I received from a fellow named Bill Richardson. Mr. Richardson manages Waste Connections here, and they're the parent organization to Leicester Sanitation and other local garbage collection services.
And when you became aware of Mr. Furr, based on what you heard, what did you do?
I went out. I'd been told he was working on
Objection.
Seven Devils Road.
Same objection, Your Honor.
I found him on Seven Devils Road.
Okay. He's limited to say found him on Seven Devils Road. Okay.
Thank you.
When you found Mr. Furr on Seven Devils Road, did you speak with him that day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what did you talk to him about?
I talked about the work he was doing.
What was your understanding of the work that he was doing?
He was picking, that particular day, he was hauling tires and some other garbage from down this steep embankment off the side of the county road.
That's Seven Devils Road?
Yes, it was.
And about what time was this? When was this?
It was about this time of the year, as best I recall, in 2016.
Now, when you met him out on Seven Devils Road, did you discuss creating something to help him pick up this garbage and litter that was on the side of the road?
I told him that I appreciated the work he was doing, and that I would see if the Board of Commissioners would be willing to assist in the work he was doing.
Did you then go do that?
Yes, I did.
So what did what did you bring before the Board of Commissioners?
At the next Board of Commissioners meeting, I suggested that we could help them by taking the refuse that they had collected, whether it be garbage or tires, and accepting it at our transfer station at Beaver Hill, and then hauling it from there, if it were garbage, to a landfill in Medford, or if it were tires, to a tire recycling facility in Portland, Oregon.
What's a transfer center? Is that what you call it?
Transfer station.
What is that?
What is that? When your local garbage collectors pick up trash from your residents, for example, their trucks are fairly small, so they haul it to a local transfer station. It's a site where the waste is accumulated, and then when we get truckloads of it, large truckloads like chip trucks, it is hauled. The waste is hauled to a landfill in Medford, Oregon, or near Medford, Oregon. In the case of tires, we have a large trailer into which the tires are placed, and those are hauled then to a recycling center in Portland, Oregon. And of course, we have to pay the recycling center for there's no profit in recycling tires, so it costs us, I think, $150 a ton to have the tires taken there to be disposed of or to be recycled, and I think $55 a ton, round numbers, for the garbage that goes to the landfill in Jackson County.
So it's not free to the county to take the trash either to the transferring centers or stations or to Medford or Portland to recycle.
Yeah, now we weren't involved in taking the garbage or the material that was being collected to the transfer station. Les's Sanitation, one of the local garbage collectors here, did that on their ticket. They did it as just for public interest. Then after it was delivered by them to our transfer station at Beaver Hill, we then paid for taking the trash onto either the landfill near Medford or the tire recycling place in Portland.
And did the county pay for those transfers?
Yes, we did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you brought forward this agreement or plan to the Board of Commissioners. Did you guys approve that plan?
Yes, I made a request to the other two commissioners on the board that we participate in helping Mr. Furr dispose of the materials that he was gathering off of property alongside the county roads. And they said, let's try that for a couple of weeks to see what it would cost us. And we did.
Okay. After those couple of weeks, after those couple of weeks, did the Board of Commissioners then regroup and discuss it again? Yes,
we continued the program for another 2-week period, as best I recall. And then we did that once more. And then finally, we said we'll do it until the middle of the year.
Okay. So what happened when you decided to do it until the middle of the year? Why did that change occur?
Instead of doing it 2 weeks at a time?
Correct. What came to the ending point?
By that time, we had a record of about what the flow, how many tons of trash would be collected each week or each 2-week period, and we projected ahead to the middle of the year about how much that would amount to in tons and how much that would amount to in dollars, and we felt comfortable committing those dollars for that period of time.
And how many dollars was that?
It was in the neighborhood of $10,000. I don't remember precisely.
Okay. So once you hit the middle of the year of 2006, was there no longer money in the budget to pay for those fees? There
was never money in the budget. We took unbudgeted money and used it to support that activity.
Were you present at a I believe it was a Board of Commissioners work session on April 13th of 2016?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and on that day, was the defendant there also?
Yes, he was.
And what were you guys discussing on that day?
We were discussing the activities and And I think that was the time that we agreed to continue doing this until the middle of the year.
Do you remember if you informed the defendant of
He
that
was, yes, he
timeline?
was there. He would have known that.
Did he have any questions regarding why it was ending in June?
I don't recall questions. What I recall was unhappiness that we wouldn't do more and couldn't do it longer than that.
Did he, on that day, did he approach you about getting paid to pick up the garbage and debris on the side of the road?
I'm going to object to this entire line of questioning as irrelevant as to littering. Whether or not he went to him to get paid. What's the relevance of this?
Overruled. It could go to his knowledge. Go ahead.
I recall, as best I recall, yes, Mr. Furr said that he needed money to pay his bills, his personal bills, and we said no to that.
At any time, based upon your understanding of what Mr. Furr was doing, at any time were you aware that he was picking up the garbage and debris and depositing it at the transfer station himself?
To my knowledge, I had no knowledge of his taking it to the transfer station himself. What I knew about was that he would put it at the side of the road, and then Les's Sanitation would pick it up there, bring it to the transfer station, and from there, the county would be responsible for it.
When you told the defendant that you were only going to continue this agreement or relationship with him until June of 2016, how did he react to that?
Again, I think my recollection is, my impression was that he wanted more than that, more in terms of time, more in terms of money to help him pay his own bills.
Thank you very much. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Commissioner, we haven't met. My name is Kate Dyer. Thank you for
How do you
coming
do?
today. I represent Mr.
Nice to meet you.
I have several questions for you. You said that one of the duties of your in your position is citizen complaints.
Yes.
How long, to the best of your recollection, did Mr. Furr and his organization pick up trash on the side of Libby Lane and Seven Devils and other places, as far as you know?
Well, certainly for the year 2016.
And were you a commissioner that entire time?
Yes, I was.
How many complaints did you get from people about the trash that they put on the side of the road?
I don't recall getting any complaints from citizens regarding that.
Okay. And you said that your other job is to approve budgetary decisions.
Yes.
And that the money that you paid out, that we as the county paid out for taking the stuff from Les's Sanitation, came from unbudgeted funds.
These were funds that would have been, they were from within the solid waste budget, and we absorbed those costs out of that budget.
So it wasn't unbudgeted funds. I'm just confused by your testimony.
Well, they were not budgeted for this particular purpose.
So does the county have any budgeted funds to clean up that mess out there on those particular streets?
No, we do not.
Whose responsibility is it?
The landowners.
But you testified that he was picking the stuff up off of county roads.
No, I testified that he was picking it up from alongside county roads.
And if the trash was on a county easement, whose responsibility would that be?
That would be the county's responsibility.
Okay. That's all I have.
You redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Sweet, you stated that it would be the landowner's responsibility to pick up
Yes.
garbage or trash that's on their land. The roads that we're talking about, we've heard Libby Lane, we've heard Olive Barber. Are those the property that is next to the right-of-way of the road?
Mm-hmm.
Are those typically public or private lands?
Private.
And so the county does not have any program where they go on to private lands and pick up garbage or trash?
No, we do not.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may
Thank
sit
you.
down. Finance witness.
State calls Cheryl Westgard. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Cheryl Westgard, Westgaard.
And how are you currently employed?
Coos County Solid Waste Department,
What do you do for them?
Business Operations Manager.
Okay. And what does that mean?
Well, pretty much my job oversees the disposal site, all matters there.
And where's the disposal site in Coos County?
We're on Highway 101, about 15 miles south of Coos Bay.
Are you familiar with Raymond Furr?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know him?
I have seen him at meetings, and he has actually been to the site before when he was picking up waste.
Okay. And what meetings are you talking about?
Work sessions with the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Have you been involved in those meetings with Mr. Furr and the Board of Commissioners since the beginning of 2016?
Yes.
Now, what was your understanding of the agreement between the county and Mr. Furr regarding the garbage that he was placing in piles on the long side of some of the roads here in Coos County?
The county gave him permission to pick up a certain amount of garbage. They limited it to, first there was 10 tons and then another 10 tons. So they had more than one meeting, and so they would limit it to tonnage.
Now, what are the costs that are associated with taking on that agreement or contract?
The cost to the county is I have to pay $100 a ton to send tires off to be recycled, and then an extra $20 a ton for if they're dirty for contamination, because they have to be washed before they're recycled. And then garbage is, at that time, I think it was $95.85 a ton.
Did you keep track of the amount of garbage and debris and tires that the defendant was collecting and ultimately was picked up and taken to the transfer station?
Yes, I did. We kept track of tonnage. We separated the tires because they had to go in a separate place, so we kept tires as well as we took in garbage. And then after some of the meetings, we worked with Waste Connections, and then they ended up taking some of the garbage because they had a cheaper way of getting rid of it. So they took a lot of the garbage themselves.
So Less Sanitation is a completely different entity than the county, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who was paying this money out to either recycle the tires or to get rid of the garbage and debris that Mr. Furr was stacking along the roads?
The Solid Waste Department.
So it came out of your budget?
Came out of our budget. Mm-hmm.
Did you, had you budgeted for something like that?
No.
And we've heard testimony from Commissioner Sweet, who stated that around halfway through the year, in June of 2016, the county ended the agreement that they had with Mr. Furr. Were you present for that conversation?
I believe I was at that meeting. Yes.
And what was your understanding of why why the county was no longer able to waive the fees or pay for the fees out of their budget?
We don't have that amount of money budgeted, so the county felt that pretty soon, if I would spend too much, the county general fund would have to pick up the cost.
Now, were you present for the Board of Commissioners work session that occurred on April 13th of 2016?
I'm quite sure I was, yes.
Okay, and on that day, did you present an update of the amount of garbage and tires that the county had taken from Mr. Furr's initiative on the side of the roads?
I'm sure I did. Each meeting that we went to, I gave him an update of what they had taken, what he had brought in.
Do you know what those numbers are today?
Not off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Okay, and what is it?
It's work session minutes from the Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay, from what date?
April 13th. 2016.
Okay. Now, what I would like you to do is just read this paragraph just to yourself, not out loud.
Okay. Okay.
Does that refresh your memory of what the statistics were on April 13th of 2016?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you again, do you remember what those numbers were that you had taken the initiative to keep track of?
Yes, the waived fees was 30.83 tons of tires, and garbage was 13.45 tons. So the cost for tires was $4,623. The cost for the garbage was $1,291.86.
Now, on that day, we've heard testimony from Commissioner Sweet that he informed the defendant that they were going to have to end the agreement in June.
Mm-hmm.
Did you attempt to help the defendant find alternative financial ways of disposing of the garbage and tires?
Prior to this meeting, I had contacted Coos Watershed, and then I also talked with the trash dogs in Curry County to see how they deal with it, because they're a group that picks up waste and whatnot from the forest. And at that time, the watershed that said that they would offer to work with him.
Sustained.
I'll move on. So without going into what other people said,
Okay.
had you looked for alternative ways to help Mr. Furr's initiative?
Yes, I did. I tried to find other organizations that could help with the cost.
Okay. And do you know if either, you've mentioned 2 organizations so far, were either of those organizations able to help the defendant?
I believe they were not able to.
Did you also look into grants that possibly could have helped financially back Mr. Furr's initiative?
Yes, we did.
Did you offer to help Mr. Furr with those grants?
Yes.
Did he ever come to you and ask for that help?
No.
And what do the grants do?
Well, the grants will help pay for the disposal cost for cleaning up sites.
And how do you apply for a grant?
You fill out paperwork most of the time. You are a nonprofit organization, to fill out the paperwork. So it's more or less you try and present what cost you figure you're going to have, and that's what the grant pays for.
So the grants could have provided the financial backing to dispose of the garbage and tires.
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
There.
Thank you. We haven't met. My name is Kate Dyer. Thank you for your work for the county. It's a tough job, I'm sure. You testified that you have known Mr. Furr since early 2016 from county meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would it be your testimony that he was trying to work within the county to make this trash pickup happen? Was he cooperative?
Yes.
Okay. So he was coming to you and asking you, telling you this is what I'm doing, and you worked together collaboratively.
Yes, he came and said, but like I really have no authority. It's up to the Board of Commissioners.
No, I understand that,
Okay.
but I just wanted to ask you if that was
Yes,
your understanding.
yes.
You said you were in meetings with him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you talked about the fact that you kept track of the tonnage that came through is it Beaver Creek?
Beaver Hill.
Beaver Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Beaver Hill Station. How, and I know nothing about this subject, so pardon my ignorance on this. How would you know that the trash that came into Beaver Hill was simply from his pickup and not from our homes as well, that it didn't get mixed in somehow?
Well, Waste Connections offered to pick up the waste, and so they would call me and say, okay, we've got a load coming in from the waste that Leaven No Trace had picked up.
But what about Less's Sanitation? I mean,
they're both the same thing. Less's Sanitary is owned by Waste Connections, so
okay.
It's all one company.
Okay. You said, but you also testified, though, that Less's Sanitation charged you one price. I think you said $100 a ton for tires and $95 for trash, but then you testified that Waste Connections would take it and do it cheaper.
Okay, so Waste Connections picked up the tires and brought them to me. But Waste Connections does not take the tires. I have a contract with tire disposal out of Malala, Oregon. That's who I pay for the tire disposal.
I'm confused.
Okay. I have a contract for whenever I need to get rid of tires, and so that's who I would pay the $100 fee, $100 a ton fee to dispose or to recycle the tires.
But you told council that Waste Connections did it cheaper.
Oh, no. What I said by being cheaper is they could take garbage at a cheaper price than I do because they have they haul garbage and whatnot. They just have a better agreement with the landfill that they have a cheaper price than what I pay. That's why the garbage ended up going to their facility.
And
they waived those fees.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. According to this April 13th minutes that you were looking at and your own numbers, the total as of April 13th that the county spent hauling this trash and tires and cleanup, when you add the two numbers together, came out to roughly $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you said that you tried to find other organizations to help him, but they weren't able to help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And nobody else stepped up that you know of?
No, not that I'm aware. Well, in one of the meetings, I thought that the surf riders was stepping up to help also.
Okay. But that didn't happen?
As far as I know. I don't know.
You also talked about grants.
Mm-hmm.
And your testimony, as I understood it, was that in order to get a grant, you have to be a nonprofit organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not positive on that.
Okay. Is that true generally?
I believe so.
Is Mr. Furr's company a nonprofit organization to the best of your knowledge?
I do not know that. I know he was trying to get one. I don't know if he ever finished.
Okay. And finally, my last question. I don't know if you testified or the commissioner testified that the funds that we used to pick up this trash came out of basically non-budgeted money in your budget.
Correct.
Okay. How much money was there that was non-budgeted money in that budget?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So, I'm not either. My understanding is, obviously, you have a budget.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't know how that's relevant.
She opened the door.
Well, I'm going to allow it. I think what the question is, ma'am, you said there was money in a budget that wasn't probably for a specific line item.
Mm-hmm.
I think her question is how much in the budget was not specified for a specific line item.
That is my question. Thank you. That was much better put than I have.
Well, I guess probably everything that's in my budget is in a line item, but there are things that have not been spent, like I need a new roof, and so probably maybe some of the monies that were allocated for a new roof could have been, spent on this. I had extra help that I didn't use.
But you don't know?
No.
But it's your responsibility to keep your budget straight.
And I do. I mean, I pay my bills, and if I have leftover money, it just goes over to the next year.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Where's your office located?
At Beaver Hill.
And that's where the transfer station is?
Beaver Hill is a transfer station. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So you were there. Were you there for the most part? I don't know how. Let me rephrase. When Less Sanitation brought Mr. Furr's loads of garbage and tires, were you primarily at Beaver Hill when those were being dropped off?
Yes.
And did defendant ever bring his own loads to Beaver Hill?
No.
Okay. So it was always done by Less Sanitation.
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did Less Sanitation charge the defendant for picking up the garbage and tires and taking it to the transfer station?
And to my knowledge, he did not charge. They volunteered their trucking and their time and their employees.
Now, you stated that so once the items get to the transfer station, the tires have to go to Portland, and then the rest of the garbage, Where does that go?
It goes to a Dry Creek landfill over in Grants Pass area.
Now, who gets paid? So where does the money go when one goes to Portland and one goes to Grants Pass area?
Okay, so if it goes to Portland, I pay Malala Tire Disposal Company out of Malala. The garbage that goes to Dry Creek, we have a contract with Waste Connections. They haul, so I'm paying for the haul and the disposal to Waste Connections.
And that's less sanitation?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you are paying them for the garbage that Mr. Furr stacks up on the side of the road?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then are you also paying someone down in Grants Pass?
No.
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 Okay. So
That's all included in that one contract. It's a haul and the disposal cost.
Okay. Now, Ms. Dyer asked you whether or not there was other organizations that were able to come and help Mr. Furr out, or if anyone else stepped up. Are you aware of why they could not help Mr. Furr?
Well, the only thing that I did talk to,
Objection.
Rephrase your question.
Based upon your knowledge, are you aware of why these outside organizations were not able to come in and help Mr. Furr with the disposal of the garbage and debris he was picking up?
Just that the nonprofit organizations want to make sure that the person doing the work is working with the landowners, and so that the landowners are aware of what's going on their land.
Oh, what do you mean by that? That the landowners know what's going on their land?
Say, for instance, someone's...
I'm going to object to speculation.
Yeah.
Rephrase your question.
Yes, sir. You talked about that it's important for these other organizations to know that the landowners know what's going on their land. Why is that a concern?
So that no one would to make sure that no one gets hurt on their property, or they have insurance that they're working on their property.
Are you aware of the defendant working on private property?
I believe he was getting tires off of private property.
Do you know if the landowners had agreed to that?
I have no knowledge of that. I gave Mr. Furr the gentleman's name when he was first picking them up. He did not know who the landowner was, and I gave him the landowner's name. Whether he's ever made contact with the landowner, that I don't know, because that's been a long time ago.
And just briefly about your budget. So it sounds, I guess my question is that you're allotted a certain amount of money, correct?
Well, I guesstimate what we're going to take in garbage every year. Sometimes we take more than what we expect. Sometimes we take less than what we expect. So everything that comes through my gate at Beaver Hill is how we make our money. And so we have to accordingly, out of that, what we're guesstimating is the amount of garbage that we take in is, employee cost, disposal cost, equipment cost, running the facility.
Now, Less Sanitation, what's their business?
They are a garbage hauler. They have several franchises within the county. And then, so they have a franchised area, and only they can pick up garbage in that franchised area. But they also, with the county, have the contract to haul what garbage we take in to the landfill. So we kind of deal with them in two different ways.
So when they're doing the franchise part of that, and they come and bring a load of trash to Beaver Hill,
Mm-hmm.
Do they pay you to drop it off there?
Yes.
And can regular citizens go to Beaver Hill and dump items?
Yes.
And do they also have to pay
Yes.
to use the services?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. The state calls Keith Letts.
Go ahead, please.
Your Honor, can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
It's Keith Leitz, Leitz.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm the county attorney for Coos County.
Okay. How long have you been employed with them?
Since March of 2015.
Do you have prior experience as an attorney?
Yes, I was an Air Force JAG judge advocate prior to working for Coos County.
How long were you a JAG?
About 3.5 years.
Now, what is your job as county counsel?
I advise all of the departments for all of their legal needs, the Board of Commissioners, and any department, all 32 departments.
Now, how do you know Raymond Furr and the Leaven No Trace organization that he runs?
Well, first from when he came to a work group meeting, I think it was early last year, 2016, and then interactions from at a two follow-up work sessions with the Board of Commissioners, and really just through his Leaven No Trace activities.
Were you present at a work session Board of Commissioners meeting in April of 2016?
I was.
And we've heard testimony both from Commissioner Sweet as well as Ms. Westgard, who stated that at that day, the Board of Commissioners had told the defendant that they would only be able to continue this agreement until the middle of June. Were you present for that conversation?
I was.
Now, how did the defendant react to that news?
He was unpleased with that. He felt that the county needed to continue indefinitely.
And what was your understanding of why that agreement ended?
There were a couple of reasons. One was the county was accepting the waste that he was picking up, and the county hadn't budgeted for that. It was fairly expensive, and so that was the first problem. The second problem was the risk that the county felt was the county was taking on by allowing it to happen with Raymond and his volunteers not being insured, and the final reason was not having permission from landowners where the trash was coming off.
Let's talk about the risk of the defendant's organization and volunteers. And what type of risks are there in what they were doing?
They were working in some fairly unstable terrain, and the county was concerned that if any of his volunteers were injured or if Raymond was injured, that the county could end up facing liability for that.
To your knowledge, did the defendant have insurance to cover any of those injuries?
As far as I know, he did not.
And let's talk about that third issue. You said that he was not getting permission from the landowners. Why is that a concern?
We were concerned because we felt like if the county supported him, that we were supporting him trespassing into the landowner areas. And it kind of tied back to the liability to the county as well.
So after that meeting, did you write a letter to the defendant?
I did.
And was that within your official capacity as county counsel?
It was.
I'm showing you what the previously marked states 9.
Yeah, I have that.
Can you tell us what this is?
That is the letter that I sent to Raymond on June 2nd, 2016.
And is it in a fair and accurate representation of the letter that you sent to him? I know that this is probably not the exact letter, so is it a fair and accurate representation of the letter that you sent to him in June?
It is.
I would offer states 9 into evidence.
No objection.
Received.
Now, in this letter, can you tell us what you told the defendant?
Would you like me to read it verbatim or?
Maybe not verbatim, but if you could just hit the main points.
Sure. I told him that the letter was intended to remind Raymond that as of June 15th.
You mean Mr. Furr?
I'm sorry, Mr. Furr. Yes. That as of June 15th, 2016, the county would no longer be able to accept the trash that he had been collecting free of charge, and also that the right-of-way work permit that he had been previously issued would no longer be valid.
I'm going to object to any testimony about this work permit. It hasn't been offered into evidence, and it's best evidence rule.
Right, but that exhibit has been, and so he can refer to the exhibit. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And it established reminded him of the cutoff date, which was 11:59 p.m. on June 15th, 2016, and informed him that any placing trash in the right-of-way after that time may be considered offensive littering and or illegal dumping, and offered my office as a contact for him.
Why did you send that letter?
At the direction of the Board of Commissioners, I sent the letter to remind Raymond that the right-of-way permit was expired and that he should not be placing trash in the right-of-way after June 15th.
Do you know what a right-of-way permit is?
It's a permit that's issued by the road department that allows a person or an entity to work within the county right-of-way.
So, are you aware that the defendant had a right-of-way permit at some time?
Yes, he did.
I'm going to renew my objection to this permit.
No, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
And to your knowledge, do you know why the permit was invalidated or ended?
Because Mr. Furr had not complied with any of the requirements that the county had placed on him with getting insurance and landowner permissions.
The information that you wrote in the letter that you sent to the defendant, was that information also given to him at the April 2016 work session?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so the letter was kind of a follow-up.
Correct.
Is that a good way of phrasing it?
It was, right.
Okay. To your knowledge,
There.
Thank you. We spoke. I'm Kate Dyer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, nice to make your acquaintance. You wrote this letter at the direction of the Board of Commissioners.
Correct.
And you said that you wrote it because they revoked this permit that he allegedly had.
That was part of the reason, yes.
Okay. And that he didn't comply with whatever these requirements of this permit that we don't have had.
Correct.
Do you have any personal knowledge of whether or not he did or did not have insurance?
I know that we...
Do you have any personal knowledge?
No.
Okay.
As far
Do you
as
have any personal knowledge as to whether or not, if he did indeed go on private property, that he got the landowners okay?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of.
Excuse me just a minute. Not that you're aware of that he had permission, or the question was asked and you answered it in such a way that I'm not too sure what the answer is. Your question again was, did he have any knowledge whether he had permission to go on the land?
Correct.
Your answer is you don't know whether he had permission or not, or you know that he did have permission, or what?
My knowledge was limited to the April 14th or the April meeting, and that was that I was not aware of him having knowledge.
Having knowledge or permission?
I'm sorry, having permission.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
you never...
I just wanted to clarify because his answer didn't really necessarily go to your question. Go ahead.
My question is, you never heard from any landowner that the defendant went on their property without permission.
objection hearsay.
No, it's just a weather complaint. I'll allow that. Go ahead and answer it.
That's correct.
Okay. So you have no personal knowledge. You're just going by what the county
Objection
council
asked
told
and
you.
answered.
Ruled.
You're just going by what the county council told you.
I am the county council.
I'm sorry, the county commissioners.
I'm going from what Raymond said at the April meeting.
Okay. And in this letter, you said that if he continued to pick up the trash, that you would think about any later trash may be considered offensive littering or illegal dumping. Were those your words?
That's correct.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, as the county council, did he continue after June 15th to pick this up?
That's my understanding is yes.
And after June 15th, to the best of your knowledge as county council, when did he get cited for this offensive littering?
That I don't know.
Was it immediately, or was it several weeks or several months, or do you have any knowledge?
I don't. I know. All I know is after June 15th, but I really don't know when it was.
So the council never came back to you as county attorney and said, we're going to take action on this letter.
Correct.
When did you learn of that?
That he had been cited?
Right.
I know. I only know it was prior to the third work session that we held with Mr. Furr. I know it was prior to that, but I don't know when. So I could guess. I'm assuming it was between June and November of 2016.
What happened in November?
I believe November was when we had the third work session.
Okay. If I told you that he was cited on November 2nd of 2016,
Objection,
would you disagree with that?
We want facts and evidence.
Well,
He's county council.
I'll allow the question because it doesn't matter whether that was in evidence. She's going to ask that question. Go ahead and answer that question if you remember it now.
I don't remember, but I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
If I was to tell you that he was cited on November 2nd, would that sound familiar to you?
It wouldn't sound familiar, but that may very well have been the date. I don't know when the date was.
And just so I'm clear, the council did not act under your direction in citing him. The county council did not act under you didn't say to the county council.
He's the county council.
I'm sorry, the county commissioners. There's too many C's in this word. The county commissioners did not come back to you and say, council, he's out there. What should we do?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
I'm done. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. With regard to the private landowners, what did defendants say in that April 2016 work session regarding their permission?
The commissioners told him that he needed to have permission, and they...
Objection, that's hearsay.
It's in relation to what he said. You're asking what Mr. Furr said.
Correct, how he reacted.
That would be in relation to the question. Now, you can testify to what Mr. Furr said.
That in response to what the commissioner said, he acknowledged that would be a good idea to get permission from the landowners.
Did the defendant tell the work session, the people in the Board of Commissioners, did he tell them that he had received permission from the landowners?
No.
Now, as county counsel, are you in any way connected to the district attorney's office?
I'm not.
Do you bring forward criminal charges as county counsel?
I do not.
And do you direct the police to do anything regarding criminal sanctions?
I do not.
Nothing further, Your Honor. The state calls John Rowe.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Under penalty of perjury, do you promise the testimony you're going to give in this case will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do.
Mr. Rowe, can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
John Rowe, R-O-W-E.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm currently the Coos County Public Works Director and Roadmaster.
Okay. What does that mean?
Means I manage the solid waste department and the road department.
Okay. What are your duties as the roadmaster?
Well, the day-to-day operation of the road department.
And what does the road department do?
We maintain the county maintain roadways. We do permitting is one of our duties.
Let's talk a little bit about permitting. What is, I guess, do you give a right-of-way permit?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and what is that?
It's allowing the public to work in the right-of-way. We have certain rules we have to follow. We got the Coos County zoning and land division ordinances. Say someone putting in a driveway, they got to put the right type of rock in, the right dimensions. We do utility permits for the utility companies that work in the right way because we got certain rules. Power utility poles have got to be 6 foot off the edge of pavement, stuff like that. And mainly the permit, it'll state the specifications they have to follow, but it also identifies the county and holds them harmless in case they hurt themselves or get killed while they're doing their activities, just for an example. So, but it's mainly to follow the rules, the ordinances and stuff, and then do it as we spec the jobs to be done. So,
why do we have rules and ordinances regarding the right-of-way of public roads?
Well, a lot of it's, if we're doing driveways, there's certain criteria, like the turn radiuses. It's a lot of it to do with safety, and we want things to last. We want things to be done right without harming the public.
Now, anyone that wants to work on a right-of-way, do they need to get a right-of-way permit?
Yes, they do. It's required. Any work in the right-of-way needs a permit.
And what is the right-of-way?
On most of our roads, they're from center line. I mean, they're different, but the average width is 60 foot that the county maintains on a county-maintained road. So they're all listed. They might be different. They range from 30 foot to 60 foot. Some are a little bigger. Right-of-ways we've acquired from ODOT can be up to 100 foot wide. So that's our legal limits of what we maintain.
So let's say we're driving through a construction zone, those people have to get a right-of-way to do something on the road or on the side of the road?
Yes, shoulder work, anything within that right-of-way limit.
So the shoulder is also included in the right-of-way.
Yes.
Now, are you familiar with the defendant, Mr. Furr, and his organization, Leaven No Trace?
Yes.
Okay. How are you familiar with them?
Well, they had to permit pickup.
I'm going to object to any testimony about a permit unless we have the permit, which I don't have.
Your Honor, Mr. Rowe is the department that issued.
I know who he is.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you have the permit or not. I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
So you are familiar with Mr. Furr and his organization,
Yes.
correct? Okay. At some point, did Mr. Furr have a right-of-way permit?
Yes, he did. Scott Murray, our access foreman, wrote a permit for them to work in the right-of-way.
And do you know about what time that was that he did get the permit to work in the right-of-way?
Not sure what date that was.
Was it prior to June of 2016?
2015?
2016.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Were you present at a work session with the Board of Commissioners on April 13th of 2016?
Yes.
And on that day, were you present when Commissioner Sweet informed the defendant that his right-of-way permit and the agreement to pick up the garbage and dispose of it was going to end in June of 2016?
Yes.
On that day, did you bring forward some of your concerns about Mr. Furr's activities?
Well, we all kind of talked about how we can work out the problems that were going on. So.
Had you seen some of the work sites that Mr. Furr had piled up garbage at?
Yes, I did.
And after seeing that, did you have some concerns about what he was doing?
Well, we were concerned about a lot of the tires and stuff stacked along the roadway, and some of the tires and stuff that were brought off private property and stacked along the road right away. So that was a concern.
Why were you concerned with that?
Because mainly departure, if a car were to depart the roadway, that's just something to run into. I mean, it's just a hazard, especially if they're left there a long time. So.
And where were the piles that defendant was compiling? Where were those located on the roadway?
Well, the ones I looked at were on Libby, mainly.
Did you also see some on Olive Barber?
Yes, after. That was in November, though.
Okay.
That was long after it was the deadline to cease and desist. So.
The piles that you did see, though, where were they in relation to the road?
Along the shoulder.
How close were they to the roadway?
Actually, they were, I don't know, within 10 feet of the edge of pavement, the travel surface.
Now,
They were back a little ways. I mean, they weren't right on the edge of pavement, no.
Where they were located, is that a hazard?
If they're left there a long time, it's a hazard, yes.
Okay. And were you aware of the defendant making any plans to move the piles himself?
No, I was not.
Now, on November 1st of 2016, did you receive a phone call regarding Mr. Furr's activities?
Our office received a phone call and said there was...
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm offering it for what it affected him to do, not for the truth of the matter.
Okay. He can say what the phone call said. You can't take it for truth. What you can take it is just it led him then to do something. Go ahead.
So you received a phone call. What did it say?
Our office manager, business manager, received a phone call and said there was piles along Olive Barber Drive. And then she informed me of that. So I drove out there and looked at them that day.
I'm going to object to these photos, Your Honor. There's just pictures of bags in the woods with nothing to identify where they are, who took them, what they are, time-wise.
You're going to have to lay a foundation.
No, I wasn't offering.
I know.
Okay.
You were showing them.
Yes.
So go ahead and lay your foundation.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to show you what's been marked states 1 through 8. But first, I'm just going to show them to you and then I'll ask you a question, okay? Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I do, except for photo number 4. I did not take. So.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I took those photos.
Okay. And what are those photos of?
their trash collected and piled along within the right of way, and the bags were typical bags that I've seen leaving no trace used. So
And what roadway is that on?
that's on Olive Barber.
And what date is that from?
That's from, I took those on November 1st.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this. This is a criminal trial, the chain of custody issue here.
I'm not too sure that applies since he's identified the photos. He took them. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are those fair and accurate representations of what the road of Olive Barber looks like on November 1st of 2016?
Yes, for not the whole road. That was about the first 2 miles, I think.
Okay. But the first 2 miles, are those fair and accurate representations of what it looks like on November 1st of 2016?
Yes, those piles.
I would offer 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 into evidence.
Any other objection other than what you've stated?
Yes, we only were provided 5 photos in the district attorney's office in discovery. The other 3 I haven't seen.
Show her the other 3. Show them the ones so we can know what one you say you don't have. Okay, they're received.
Now, you stated that that's what, when you went out on November 1st of 2016, that's what approximately the first 2 miles of Olive Barber Road looks like. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How much further did it go up the roadway?
I drove the whole length of Olive Barber, and maybe 3 miles up I seen one bag, so they were mainly in the first 2 miles. So.
Now, where they were located on Olive Barber, according to the pictures, was there a concern with their location?
Yes, the biggest concern was how big the piles were and where that material came from.
Is Olive Barber a public way?
It's a county-maintained roadway, so yes, it is a public road.
Now, after you saw these big piles, what did you do?
Actually, I went back to the office because I went looking for them, and I didn't see them, so I came back the next day to see if they were going to continue picking up trash so I can talk to them.
And you said looking for them. Who are you looking for?
For Raymond and his crew.
Okay.
So,
The defendant?
Sorry,
Mr. Furr, just to see if they were there.
Okay. Were you able to locate him the next day?
So I went back out the next day to see if they were resuming their activity so I can talk to them.
Okay. And where did you locate them?
Actually, I drove down Olive Barber, and I did not see them, so I contacted Jason Patterson, deputy sheriff, and told him I'd go over and told him what I seen the day before, because we have a order for them not to be working after June 15th. And I told him I'd run over to Libby to see if I can see him over there, and I'd let him know if I see him. That's where I went. So.
Did the defendant have a right-of-way permit to work?
No, he did not.
On November 1st or November 2nd?
No.
And to your knowledge, did the defendant have any agreement with the county to pick up those piles of garbage on Olive Barber?
He did not.
Now, did you locate him the next day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And where did you locate him?
Out milepost 3 on Libby Lane.
Is that also a public way?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what was he doing on Libby Lane?
Dragging trash out of the bushes and bagging it.
The property that is alongside the road on Libby Lane, is that public or private property?
There's some public, but most of it's private.
Where you saw him dragging stuff out of the bushes, do you know if that's public or private land?
I do not.
Okay.
So.
Did you contact him that day?
Yes, I got out and talked to him.
Okay. What did you talk to him about?
We talked about not to do that basically he needs to talk to the Board of Commissioners. We need to straighten this out a little bit. You know, we're all for him picking up the trash, which I told him, but after June 15th, he has an order from the Board of Commissioners not to pick up trash. So that's mainly what we try to talk about is to, get with the board and straighten this mess out so he can continue to do what he's doing. But right now he's got to stop. So.
How did he react to that?
Actually, Raymond reacted pretty good. So.
Okay. Did he say anything in response to what you were telling him?
Well, he told me he was going to continue doing it, and, it didn't matter what the board told him, that he would still continue to go out and pick up garbage, so.
At that point, did a deputy arrive at the scene?
Yeah, I called Jason Patterson. First, I called Commissioner Bob Main and let him know what was going on to get permission. Should we cite him for being in the right-of-way without a permit? And he said yes. So I called Jason Patterson, deputy, and they cited him. So.
Did the defendant make any other statements that day after he had been cited?
Well, I'm not sure. He talked to the sheriffs most of the time. I talked to Jason while I was being cited, saying that maybe we can do this, adopt the highway, and told him, how that system works and stuff. But so that's mainly what we talked about while we were there. So.
Okay. What is the Adopt a Highway program?
It's where citizens come out. They'll get it's a regular program. They'll sign up for the program. We'll give them the garbage bags, give them signs. I mean, they wear vests. I mean, Raymond wears vests and stuff. So, and it's kind of and then they'll adopt a section of roadway, and they'll pick up trash, mainly just along the road. And then we'll have the juvenile department go pick up the bags most of the time. So.
Is that a free program through the road department?
Yes.
Do people volunteer, or do they get paid to come do it?
They just volunteer to do that. So.
And it sounds like the juvenile department is the one that comes and picks up
the bags.
The bags. Okay. How quickly do they pick up the bags?
Pretty quick. We call them. They come. They're usually right there next day or so. They don't stay very.
Do you remember the defendant making a statement regarding being handcuffed?
Yes, that's before the sheriff showed up. They said they can arrest me and haul me off 100 times, and I'll be back here doing it again. So.
And that was the defendant who said that?
Yes, Raymond.
Did you explain to him about the Adopt a Highway program?
Yes, I did.
And
I was trying to explain alternatives to what was going on, to straighten this out with the Board of Commissioners.
There's no question pending. He answered a question, and then he started talking.
They asked a question.
What did you explain to him?
I explained to him that, first of all, we need to, since we have this order not to pick up trash, that there is other alternatives to do this, and that could be one alternative. But still, you had to straighten it out with the Board of Commissioners. They're the ones that put the stop to this.
In order to do what he was doing legally, what steps did he need to take?
He needed to have a work in the right-of-way permit to do what he was doing.
Was it
to work only in the right-of-way.
Did he also need a way to pick the garbage and tires up from the side of the road?
Yes, but a lot of it was part of the volume of originally why this was ended. Is just the volume of garbage that was starting to accumulate, I guess.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Dyer.
Thank you. I'm Kate Dyer. I represent Mr. Furr. Let's talk about these permits for a minute. When did your office first issue the permit to Mr. Furr?
I don't know the exact date. Scott Murray did that when he originally came to the county to pick up trash along in the right of way. So
okay.
Whatever month that was, I don't have it in front of me.
Why was the permit revoked, for lack of a better word?
Because of the volume and the tires, I think. That was the commissioners. I wasn't real involved with that.
Okay.
How
long are these permits generally good for?
We have 30 days to a year. We have an annual permit also. So.
Can they be revoked within any time during that time frame?
Yes, they can.
Okay. You said that at the April 2016 meeting, there were concerns raised, and he actually worked with the commissioners as well as yourself to address those concerns.
Yes.
Yes. And from the time that the permit was revoked on June 15th of 2016 until the time that he was cited on Libby, which I believe was November 2nd.
Yes.
Do you have any direct knowledge as to whether or not the county continued to whether or not Mr. Furr continued to pick up trash on the side of the road?
I did not see him until we got a phone call on November 1st.
So you don't know what happened from June 15th to November 1st?
No.
And on this piles of trash on Olive Barber, you never saw Mr. Furr or any of his volunteers on Olive Barber picking up the trash?
Not in person.
And so maybe he was there, maybe he wasn't there. Somebody else could have done it.
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. I want to show you a photo, and I'm not sure if this was entered into evidence by the defense. Is that one of your photos? You sent it to me.
He already testified that he did not take that photo.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'll withdraw that question. You said that when you found Mr. Furr out on Libby Road, that you called the commissioner?
Yes.
And what was your intent in calling him?
I explained the situation that Raymond was back out on the roadway after the letter that says not to.
That letter that says not to that you're talking about, is that what you told counsel was the order that he was violating?
Yes, it's a letter from June 2nd sent to Mr. Block from our legal counsel.
And does your legal counsel have the authority to issue orders?
They issued this letter, our county council did.
Is it an order?
It's a letter from the Board of Commissioners instructing our legal counsel to write Mr. Furr to stop picking up trash.
Does the Board of Commissioners have the authority to issue orders?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay. And the Adopt a Highway program, are those people permitted?
Yes, they have a permit to.
And you said the juvenile department picks up their trash?
In that program, yes.
In that program.
Yeah.
What does that mean, the juvenile department?
They, it's the people in, I guess, the youth in trouble, whatever. That's
Youth in detention?
Detention, yeah.
Okay. Why wasn't Mr. Furr given the opportunity to take advantage of those youth?
I think it was, he wasn't in that program, an Adopt a Highway program.
I understand that. But my question is, why couldn't the commission or the roads department have made that happen if you made it happen to the Adopt a Highway?
I don't know. A lot of it's probably the volume of stuff. So, I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
And when you found him out on Libby Lane, you said that you told him he had to straighten all this out with the county commission.
I told him that's what he needs to do.
Right. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
So
there's ways to work through this instead of just breaking the law. What's what he was doing. So.
And isn't it true then that before he could address it with the county commission, that you had him cited?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, one more question. No, I'm good.
Redress?
Yes, Your Honor. Why, you stated that right-of-way permits can be revoked. Why are they typically revoked?
For activity, they're permitted to do a certain activity, and if they don't do that activity, we can revoke it. Or if they don't do it as per our specifications or what rules we want them to do it by. So, ordinances, basically.
And are you aware as to why the defendant's right-of-way permit was revoked?
Yes.
Okay, why was it revoked?
Mainly because of the tire issue and the cost to the county, and they believed then that he was getting a lot of material on private property and that the county was paying to get rid of that garbage. So we were paying to remove garbage that it generated from private property originally. So that was the problem. That's the way I understood it. So.
Now, you stated, or you agreed with Ms. Dyer when she said that, in the April of 2016 session, that the Board of Commissioners and defendant were trying to work towards a resolution. Did defendant ever, what effort did the defendant do to work towards a resolution with the concerns that the Board of Commissioners had?
No, I don't know what happened after that. I know they were trying to find funding for him to pay for disposal costs and different things like that. So I know Melissa Crivens made some phone calls and did stuff, but I don't know exactly all the details. So.
Okay. Now, in talking about the Olive Barber Road, which is the photographs that we talked about, when you went out and investigated or saw those piles of debris, was there anything about it that was familiar to you?
Well, the bags.
Okay, let's talk about the bags.
The bags are bags typically he was using then to put trash in. So.
And I'm showing you what State 1 is. Can you describe the bags for us?
They got a Oregon with the solve symbol on them.
Okay. Have you seen those bags be used by any other organization in Coos County?
No, I haven't.
Now, in talking about the Libby Lane, when you went out and made contact with the defendant, were there piles of garbage and tires on Libby Lane at the time?
Not yet. There's still a pile of tires on Libby Lane, but at the time he was using those same bags, filling them up with trash, walking down the road. So,
okay, so when you
it looks like he hadn't been there that long. Maybe that was his first day there doing that. So,
okay. But when you came into contact with him, what was he physically doing?
they were coming out of the woods from a wide spot with those bags in his hand, picking up trash. So.
To your knowledge, did those bags of trash and the debris that he was pulling out of the woods, did it get removed by him on Libby Lane?
Yes, I think he removed those that day after he got cited.
To your knowledge, did he remove the items from Olive Barber?
Yeah, I think it was a couple weeks later they were removed.
Okay, but you don't know who removed them?
I don't know who removed them. I didn't see them removed.
Now, we talked about the Adopt a Highway program, and the juvenile department is the one that comes and picks up the bags. Can you explain to us the difference in volume between what the Adopt a Highway program was producing and what the defendant was producing?
Usually they're walking down the shoulder of the roadway and just picking up trash that they can see along the shoulder. I mean, because most of those roads, we got a 30-foot right-of-way, and, the road's probably 14 feet wide, so you got maybe another 14, 15 feet of roadway or shoulder before you hit the bushes. So that's basically where they're just walking. And they don't generate that many bags. I mean,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may sit down. Be seated, please. Mr. Furr, I know that Ms. Dyer's gone over this with you, but I always do this. You can be seated if you wish. You have the right to testify or not. That's your choice. If you do testify, then the DA's office can cross-examine it. You, just as any other witness, can be cross-examined. If you decide not to testify, and my understanding from at least listening to the trial is that you intend to, that could not be used against you in any way by the jury, and the court would give an instruction if Ms. Dyer requested, telling the jury that you not only didn't have to testify, you didn't have to present any evidence. Do you understand what I've explained?
Yes, sir.
Okay, bring the jury in. Call your next witness.
The state recalls Commissioner John Sweet.
Commissioner Sweet, you're still under oath. Please retake the stand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioner Sweet, were you previously testified that you were at the April 13th, 2016 work session regarding
Yes, I was.
organization? Okay. And on that day, did the concept of the defendant getting permission from the private landowners, did that topic come up?
I believe it did.
Do you remember what the defendant said regarding whether he had gotten permission from the private landowners?
No, I don't.
Okay, what I'm showing you is the work session minutes from April 13th of 2016. If you wouldn't mind reading this paragraph just to yourself, and then let me know when you're done.
Okay, I remember that now.
Okay. So, did you talk to the defendant about getting permission from the private landowners in which he was removing trash from?
I don't remember specifically talking to him during the course of this work session. It does seem to me that we had asked him to get permission from the landowners in prior conversations. But I'm not definite on that.
At the April work session, did the defendant make any statements about whether or not he had approached the private landowners?
Well, according to this right here, he said that he could not imagine his getting permission, as he had contacted some of the landowners and they weren't willing to help financially.
To your recollection, did he say anything about whether or not he had not just asked them to contribute financially, but to give him permission to enter their private property?
No, I don't remember that. I just remember, I can just cite what I see here.
Okay. Now, we've heard that there was a right-of-way permit that was revoked by the road department and by the Board of Commissioners with regard to Mr. Furr. Can you tell us why that right-of-way permit was revoked?
Yes, I can. We had told Mr. Furr that we would continue helping with the removal of the waste that he collected alongside the road through the middle of the year, with Les's doing the pickup from the roadside, delivering it to our transfer station, and then our taking it from the transfer and paying for delivery from the transfer station to the solid waste facility or to a tire recycling facility. And we wanted to make sure that we were all done with this project by the end of June, so we asked Mr. Block to quit putting material at the side of the road by the middle of June, so it'll give us 2 weeks to clean that up.
Why did you place that cutoff at the middle of June?
Because it takes a while to pick all to keep the piles of tires and waste, to remove those from the side of the road, and we wanted to make sure we were all done and that everything that we were responsible for paying for was completed by the end of June, which was in keeping with what we had, the time limit we had set on participating in this project.
Was there any room in the budget to continue paying for those fees past the end of June?
You know, there was no money budgeted for this particular activity, so we were taking money out of the solid waste fund. We thought we could cover some part of that. We weren't sure how much we could cover. We never know for sure what our revenues will be. We can make estimates of how much revenue we'll get from people bringing waste to the facility, but we can't be sure of what it is. So it's not. I don't know that I could answer that question, how much room there was for more of this.
But at some point, the Board of Commissions decided to basically end the agreement that you had with the defendant, correct?
Well, the agreement was that we would continue to take this waste until, at first the agreement was we would take the waste for 2 weeks, for a 2-week period. And then as I recall, we extended that for another 2 weeks. And then again, we extended that for yet another 2 weeks. And finally, we said, okay, we think that we can support this program through the middle of the year. And so the agreement was that we would continue to absorb the cost of dealing with the waste once it got to our transfer station until the middle of the year. And so we tried to cut it off, cut his collection from putting things at the side of the road off at the middle of June so that we could get that all cleaned up and trucked away by the end of June, which was the period of time that we told him we'd participate.
And after you told him that June 2016 cutoff date, did you instruct County Council to write him a letter indicating those terms?
Yes, we did, to make sure there was no misunderstanding.
And where does the Coos County budget come from? Where does the money come from?
Well, the money to run solid waste comes from the tipping fees we get at our Beaver Hill transfer station. So if an individual citizen wishes to bring his garbage out there in a 32-gallon garbage can, he's charged or she's charged $4 or $5 a can. I can't remember the fee. And if a garbage collector with a garbage truck that does residential pickups wishes to bring their garbage out there, we charge them a tipping fee, and that fee is like $90 a ton.
And that's where the solid waste budget...
And that's the revenue, that establishes the revenue side of the solid waste budget. But we don't have any tax money. It's all revenue derived from people's bringing garbage to us.
Now, between June of 2016, when he was told to stop and got the letter, and November 1st or 2nd, when he was cited, did you work with the defendant during that time period at all?
No.
Did he approach you anytime during that time period, asking to figure out a solution to allow him to continue doing what he was doing?
I don't believe during that time period he did.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Stack.
On the topic of the private landowners.
Yes, ma'am.
How many private landowners came to the commission and complained that Mr. Furr was on their property?
None to me.
Okay. Did you ever see him take anything off of private property?
Yes, I did.
You know that it was private property, not the county easement.
Yes.
And do you know if he had permission from that landowner?
He told me he did not.
Okay. Did you do anything about that?
No.
Just let him do it.
Just a minute. I called some landowners, as I told Mr. Furr I would. I talked to 3 or 4 of the large timber companies, and they did not express much interest in participating in the program that he had started.
And but there's no evidence that he ever went on timber land, or when you say private landowners, I was thinking homeowners. Was I thinking wrong?
It was generally timberlands.
Okay. You talked about the fact that this project was to be finished by the end of June.
I talked about the fact that we were willing to pay for the cost of delivering the products that he dug up out of the forest and were delivered to our transfer station, that we would pay for disposing of those either at a solid waste, at a landfill facility or at a tire recycling facility through the middle of the year.
Did you, as a commission, was there an understanding that his work would be done, that all of the trash would be cleaned up by the end of June?
Absolutely no belief that would happen by the end of the year. It was a matter of finances. We did not feel that we could continue to commit our resources to disposing of this garbage beyond the middle of the year.
Okay. And as I understand it, then, that the person in charge of the budget for solid waste doesn't sit down and line item what money is going to be allocated to what, but because it's based on this continual motion of money coming in from Les's sanitation and Mr. and Mrs. homeowner, and you don't know from one day to the next how much money you're going to have.
We do budget based on our best guesstimates of how much tonnage we will receive, about what it's going to cost us to haul that away. And if we receive 15,000 tons of material, we know, for example, it costs us $55 a ton to haul that to the landfill, and therefore we budget 15,000 times $55 a ton for landfill disposal. We have other costs. We have fuel, we have power, we have personnel, and we do our very best to guesstimate what those charges are. We did not have a budget line item for disposal of the waste that Leaving No Trace was generating.
So why did you even start?
We thought it was a good project. We
didn't have the money for it.
We had some money. There's a little slack in the budget. We had some money there. We thought we could handle part of it. And as I said, we put a limit on it. First, we put a limit on it for 2 weeks. And we liked the work. We thought, okay, we can handle this for a little bit longer. We put a limit on it for another 2 weeks. And then another 2 weeks. And then we said, we think we're good through the middle of the year. We put a limit on it until the middle of the year.
So
we projected by that time we would have spent as much of our money as we felt we could support doing.
And there were other programs that Mr. Furr could have taken advantage of with the help of the council, right?
I don't know.
Adopt the highway.
Yes, I suppose. Yes, he could have.
Okay, but that didn't happen, right?
We brought that up to him, said it could happen. But again, adopt the highway is not. That has to do with taking waste from the county right-of-way, not this huge amount of waste that was being drawn up from private lands off of the county right-of-way.
But it wasn't all private lands, was it? Most of it was on the county right-of-way.
I don't think so. I know not.
You don't know one way or the other.
Yes, I do.
Did you inspect all of those?
Not all of them, but I was out there and I watched him where he was working. It was off the county right-of-way, and it was not material that was on the right-of-way. It was on private land beyond the right-of-way.
How many times did you watch him?
I was out there one day. I've had other people witness his activities.
Okay, I'm just interested in what you saw.
One day.
Out of how many months?
About 5 months.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Can you redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Commissioner Sweet, you talked about you had contacted some of the timber companies. Do they own some of the lands on Libby Lane and Olive Barber Road?
I believe that Weyerhaeuser Company owns land in that area. Former Menasha owns land in that area.
And when you say that they own the land, does that mean that the land is considered private?
It is private land.
Because it's not owned by the county, correct?
No, it's private land.
And you testified that you observed the defendant take trash and debris off of private land, and he told you that he did not have permission from the landowner. Is that correct?
I don't think I asked him about permission that day. Okay. No, but it was off of private land.
Did you ever ask him if he had permission from a landowner?
I don't think I ever asked him permission if he had. I know the question was asked, but I don't think I ever asked that.
Do you remember what his response was to that question?
No, I do not. I mean, his answer was, no, I do not have.
Okay, so let me rephrase.
Yes.
How did he respond when asked if he had permission from the landowner?
It was mentioned in that in those minutes from the April work session, his response.
And what were the words that he used?
I can't remember right offhand, but it was generally, no, I don't. I just
He said, no, I don't?
Yes, he said, no, I don't. You can double check that in the minutes there. I think that paragraph you had me read indicated that.
Just let you read it again.
Okay. Thank you. I quote from this. Mr. Block, okay, let me back up. Commissioner Maine said that Mr. Block needs to get written permission from the landowners to protect himself. Mr. Block said that he can't imagine that happening, as he contacted some of the owners and they were not willing to help financially.
Thank you very much. Nothing further.
You may sit down. You still want this witness to remain available? Okay. You'll have to be available by contact. Call your next witness.
The state rests, Your Honor.
Steiner?
Oh. We would ask that the jury be excused, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you step out for a moment, I have a legal matter to take care of. Go ahead, please.
Your Honor, at this point, the defense would make a motion for judgment on acquittal. The defendant is charged with offensive littering on November 2nd, 2016. The road commissioner himself testified that he did see him on that date, and all Mr. Furr had with him was a bag of trash that Mr. Furr then himself put in his own vehicle and left with. He said the road commissioner testified that there was no litter on the road on November 2nd, which is the only day in question here. I would make the argument that the state has not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt because there's no evidence of any littering on November 2nd, 2016. The state's own witnesses testified to that. We would ask that the case be dismissed.
Well, it says it's on or about. So based on that motion, I'll deny the motion. Bring the jury in. Call your first witness, please.
Can I have just a second?
Certainly.
Your Honor, the state calls Catherine Seeley. The defense calls Catherine Seeley.
Under penalty of perjury, do you promise testimony you'll give in this case will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Have a seat here. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. State your name and spell your last name for the record.
Catherine Seeley, Seeley.
And what do you do for a living?
For a living, I'm a baker. I'm also a volunteer firefighter with Gardner.
With Gardner. How do you know Mr. Furr?
Volunteering with him, with his group, and picking up trash.
How long have you been doing that?
About 7 or 8 months-ish.
How many times have you done it?
Roughly. At least 10 or so-ish.
Okay.
Probably more.
Describe what happens when you go out with him on a work crew day.
Well, we start by putting our vests on, putting cones out, signs up saying for, traffic to be aware that we're out there, and then just go along the side of the road off the pavement as far as we possibly can and pick up trash that's just sitting on the side of the road, obviously thrown out of people's cars for the most part.
You ever go down any deep embankments, hills?
Just the one time with the tires.
Okay. And of the 10 or 12 times you were out with him, was it only one time with tires?
Yeah.
What kind of trash was it normally?
Mostly like cups from fast food places, bags of fast food garbage type of stuff.
And when you picked them up, what did you do with them? You filled up a bag. What did you do with them?
Filled up a bag. We'd usually consolidate them off where there was a big pull-off where a truck could pull off safely and load it up into there.
Okay. And did you ever go back to the same spot over and over again?
Libby.
What happened when you were there the first time? How clean did you leave it?
Oh, there was no trash left when we left it.
How much longer was it that you went back?
2 weeks.
What did it look like then?
Like we never went there in the first place.
So what'd you do?
Same thing. Just picked it up, bagged it up, piled a few piles here and there, anywhere we could find a pull-off area where a truck could pick it up.
Was the stuff that you had put there 2 weeks prior still there?
No.
Okay. So how many times did that happen on Libby?
I went out with him on Libby about 3 times.
Same story?
Yeah.
Okay. And how far off the road would you put these bags of trash? Can you give me looking at this room, can you put it in perspective?
A rough estimate would be maybe like say if this wall here was the road this way, it'd be about to that wall there, or maybe a little more. Just enough room for a vehicle, a dump truck-sized vehicle to pull off the road and be able to load it.
Did you ever have any safety concerns while you were out there?
Objection, Your Honor.
They were
Overruled. Go ahead.
No.
Matter of fact, other than yourself, who went with you to pick up trash?
The first time I brought my children with me. That was when we were on the 101 cleaning up.
How old are they?
7, 10, and 13.
Okay. That's all I have.
Ms. Rice?
Your Honor. How did you meet the defendant?
I saw his Leaven No Trace group on Facebook, noticed the amount of trash that they were picking up. And the first time I went out was when I went with my children, just to kind of show them that it's important to kind of give back to your community and help when things are needed to be helped. And
Okay. Do you know what dates you went out and picked up trash with the defendant?
specifically, no.
No. You know roughly when it was?
Probably sometime in July, and then, or maybe it started in June.
So June or July of 2016, is that a fair
Yes.
estimate? Okay. Now, do you also donate to Leaven No Trace financially?
I have.
You have. How much have you given them?
I really don't know an exact number.
You just ballpark it?
Maybe $50.
Okay. And were you aware of what those donations were used for?
Absolutely.
What were they used for?
Good supplies, gas to get places to find sites, or just to go pick up trash.
What you said that they were used to go pick up trash. What do you mean by
For
that?
gas
Oh,
to go to get to places.
your understanding is the donations were just for the defendant's gas.
When I was giving them to him, that's what we were using them for.
Did you get reimbursed for the gas you used to go out to these sites and pick up gas or pick up trash? I apologize.
No, that was my part of my volunteering, so I don't get reimbursed from the fire department either.
Because you're a volunteer, correct?
Right.
And what city is that in?
Gardner?
Now, when you went out with him, you testified that you piled all the trash that you guys picked up, all the garbage, and you put it on the side of the road. Is that correct?
Wait, off the side of the road, yes.
But on the side of the road, correct? Yes.
Yes.
or no? Yes? Okay. And you never took any of the trash with you, right? To deposit in your own garbage cans at home or anything like that?
Actually, the one time we did take the garbage with us to go through it and pull out different, like, recyclables. And
Okay. But you previously testified that you guys compiled it and left it on the side of the road for a dump truck.
for the most part, yes.
Okay. Did you ever take any loads of what you had picked up and took them to the Beaver Hill, it's called a transfer station?
Not to Beaver Hill.
No. Did you take any of the trash that you had picked up and dropped it off at a disposal site?
I've taken it in my vehicle and taken it to my dumpster at home.
So what was left on the side of the road then? If you were taking the trash with
Not
you?
always.
Oh, okay. So not always. So sometimes it got left, but sometimes you took it home with you.
Correct.
And were you aware with the agreement that the defendant had with the county for the first part of 2016?
No.
So you didn't know what arrangements he had made with the county regarding the pickup and disposal of the trash?
No, I just knew that it was picked up because it was gone the next time we came.
Are you aware that it costs money to pick it up and dispose of it?
I was not ever a part of any of that, so no.
Okay. So you just went out and you picked it up and left it on the side of the road sometimes, and someone else took care of it from there?
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
When you were with him on those 10 or 12 occasions, you testified that you picked up stuff, debris, coffee cups. To the best of your knowledge, were you ever on private property?
No, when I was ever out there, we were just walking along the side of the road.
Thank you.
You may sit down. You're free to go or remain, whatever you wish to do. Call your next witness, please.
I'm going to call Mr. Fur.
Raise your right hand, please. Under penalty of perjury, do you promise the testimony you're going to give in this case to be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Have a seat up here, please.
What's your name?
Raymond Furr,
Spell Fur.
F-U-R-R.
You also known as Raymond Block?
Yes, ma'am.
Why is it that you have two names?
The Block is my father's last name, and it's my artist name. It's my way of honoring him. He passed away.
Okay. But Raymond Fur is your legal name.
Yes.
And you have headed up a group that you call Leaven No Trace.
Yes.
Tell me how that came into being.
I saw a problem, and no one doing anything about it, so I wanted to come up with a solution.
How did you do that?
I started cleaning up trash. Started acting.
I'm sorry?
I started acting.
Acting?
Just went out there and started actually doing something about it.
Oh, okay. And when you say out there, where's out there?
Libby was a road that caught my attention because I traveled down that road a lot.
What was it about Libby that was so attention-getting?
The massive amount of trash that I saw that kept accumulating every day I drove down it, and the lack of it being cleaned up ever.
Yeah. So you kind of just took this on yourself.
Yes.
Somehow you came in contact with the county commissioners. How did that happen?
Later, after talking to Bill from Les Sanitation, and he worked as a liaison between me and the county to continue the pickups of the trash I was cleaning up.
How did you come in contact with Bill from Les Sanitation?
He came to my job site one day and conversated with me about what I was doing and wanted to help any way he could.
So would it be fair to say that Less's Sanitation volunteered to pick up your trash?
Yes, the first load was taken by Less Sanitation.
Okay. And what was your understanding of loads after the first one?
That it was being taken care of through the county.
Okay. And you understood that from the county?
Through Bill.
And as you went to various...
I don't know who Bill is, neither do they.
I'm sorry, we touched on it. Who's Bill?
Bill Richardson is the manager of Less Sanitation.
Okay. And it was your understanding that he had the apparent authority to pick up this trash for you as a gesture of goodwill to the county?
Yes.
So how long, if you know, how long will go by from the time you left the trash until the time they picked it up, if you know?
Day or two, maybe 3.
Okay. And how much trash would you normally pick up in one of your trash pickup days?
It would matter my location if I was cleaning up a site or cleaning up the sides of the road.
Difference?
A large amount in one location.
Okay. What's the difference between a site? Tell me what a site is.
A site I would consider 1 ton or more of material.
And what kind of material?
Plastics, beds, TVs, toilets, you name it, man made it, I found it.
Okay. Where would you find this stuff?
Directly off county roads.
Whose property were they on?
They would go down into mostly BLM, government lands and timberland property.
Did you have permission from the timberland or the government land to pick these up?
The government land I had verbal approval. The timberlands were harder to get a hold of.
Okay. And did you ever pick up trash that was just on the county easement, county road?
Absolutely.
How much of a percentage was county easement trash as opposed to maybe BLM or timber trash?
Well, up till June, it was very sporadic, and it was from everywhere. From June to November, it was just from the county easement.
Okay.
I apologize. I didn't hear the last part.
Could you repeat your answer, please?
From June when I was served till November when I got the ticket, I was only cleaning the county easement on Libby Road.
Okay. Didn't go on private land?
No.
You had this permit that we've heard about, yes?
Yes.
Were there requirements that you had to comply with this permit?
The only requirements were with me signing it. It held me to follow safety guidelines.
And you heard your witness's testimony about safety. Was there anything else in addition to what she testified to with the cones and the vests that you had to do in order to comply?
No.
Did you always have vests and cones?
Absolutely.
Okay. And where did you get them?
I got them donated. A few I got from the county roads department, like some of the signs, maybe one of the vests, but it just accumulated over time.
Okay. And apparently on June 15th, this permit came to an end. What was your understanding of why?
Because they no longer could financially support or wanted to support what I was doing.
So what did you do as of June 15th?
I stopped pulling mass tonnage, and I only was cleaning up the easement of the county roads.
And when you say the easement of the county roads, what do you mean?
30 foot from center.
Okay, what kind of stuff would you pick up?
It was glass bottles, cans, drinks, pretty much anything that would fly out of somebody's car or could be thrown out of the car.
Okay. You didn't have the permit. Why did you continue?
Because I wasn't breaking any laws. The permit was only to relinquish liability against the county.
How do you know that?
That's exactly what it said. It said, in signing this...
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, they're the ones that introduced the permit.
I know, he can testify about the permit. He can't testify to what they said.
Okay. So it was your understanding that you weren't breaking any laws?
Yes.
And so what happened on the day in question when you got the citation?
I was cleaning the easement on Libby Road.
Were you on county property?
Yes.
And you heard the testimony of the roadmaster that said you had a bag in your hands.
Yes, I did.
So what did you do with that bag? He said you took it with him. What did you do with it? You took it with you.
The bag of trash?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it with me.
Okay. So at no time did you dump that on Libby Road?
No.
And when you would leave a site, I guess you call it a site, what did it look like in comparison to when you got there?
Beautiful compared to having trash laid all over the place. It looked clean.
And in your opinion, this little aisle here was the road, and the trash was over here where the jury is. How far back to that wall would you go to make sure the trash was out of the way?
From June to November,
No, I didn't ask the question right. If this is where the road is,
yes,
and this is the side of the road right here, and then all of that is just empty spot where the jury is sitting, how much space would you have between where that space ended and the road to store that trash?
To the bushes.
Which is, are you talking about as much distance as they have there, or a larger distance?
It could be that distance or more, mattering if there was a turnout or not.
Okay. You heard testimony about somebody found something on Olive Barber.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Did you do it?
I cleaned up Olive Barber, yes.
Okay. When was that? Let me ask that.
End of October or end of September, beginning of November.
Okay. From June 15th to the Olive Barber cleanup, had you had any other cleanups in the county?
Yeah, I've been cleaning state, BLM, and forest lands.
Any in the county?
In the county, yes.
County roads?
Not on the county roads, no.
And all of that had been picked up?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have any expectation as to Olive Barber being picked up?
Seeing as they continued to pick up my trash on Libby, I believe that it would be picked up.
Okay. Were you surprised when the road commissioner came to you?
Yes.
Okay. What was your understanding of your conversation with him on Libby that day?
Objection, hearsay.
He testified to the conversation.
You know, if I actually need help, I'll ask.
I'm sorry?
I said if I need help on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll allow him to testify to what's already been testified to, the conversation. Go ahead.
I was told that I was not allowed on the county easement and I needed to get off of his easement.
Were you on public property?
Yes.
And what happened next?
He told me if I do not leave, then he's going to call the police on me. And I told him that I'm not breaking any laws, so he has no right.
What happened next?
I honestly felt intimidated by the way he came up to me, but I think that was the end of the conversation when he first initially came up.
Was there a second contact?
Yeah, we walked around the corner on Libby, and then there was two sheriffs and John Rowe sitting there waiting for us.
Okay. What happened then?
We walked up on them, and they proceeded to give us some tickets.
You say us. Who do you mean?
Me and a volunteer.
Okay. And they gave you a ticket each?
Yes, they gave us both a ticket.
Was a volunteer privy to any of these conversations you had with the...
Objection, Your Honor. I'm not sure how the other volunteer is relevant here.
Sustained.
What happened next?
Conversated with the ticketing deputy and also talked to John Rose some more. He agreed that I needed the permit, and he offered assistance to retrieve that permit so I could continue what I was doing.
How much was that citation for?
$75.
And
When you got that citation, what did you do? Immediately after you got the citation, what did you do?
I continued cleaning up Libby.
And what did you do with the trash?
I set it down like normal.
Was it, to the best of your knowledge, was it ever picked up?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Russ?
Mr. For how long have you lived in Coos County?
About 4 years.
And when did you start this Leaven No Trace organization?
Beginning of 2016.
And are you currently employed?
This is my job.
The Leaven No Trace is your job?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how do you support yourself?
Through this program.
Through the donations?
Through donations, can drives, fundraisers, auctions. There's many different avenues I've been getting funding with.
And those means of fundraising, donations, those pay you directly, correct?
They cover the functioning cost of being able to continue the program, yes.
And those functioning costs are gas and, I'm assuming, vehicle repair, things like that?
Yes.
So those fees and fundraisers and donations, they don't go to paying the dump sites, correct?
No.
And you've been working since the beginning of 2016. You've been working with the Board of Commissioners of Coos County, correct?
Yes.
And we've heard a lot about this agreement. You came to an agreement with them where you would do your part and they would pay for the disposal of what you were picking up. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the way that it was worked out was that you were to leave the garbage, debris, tires on the side of the road, and that less sanitation would come, pick that up on their own dime, and take it to the dump site, and then the county would pay for it to be dumped properly. Is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, for half of this 6 months. The other half, they brought me dumpsters, and I filled them myself.
Okay, so the agreement that I just explained, that was from January to June of 2006,
And
correct?
in that time, there was half the time that they brought large dumpsters to my tire site, and I filled them, and then they came and removed them when they were full. Probably about 10 to 12 of them.
Okay, and that was done through the county?
Yes.
So that didn't cost you 1 penny, correct, to dispose of the tires or the garbage from January to June of 2006?
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Correct.
So you were then present at it was on April 13th of 2016. It was a work session with the Board of Commissioners.
Yes.
And on that day, you were told that they could no longer continue to have this agreement with you, that they couldn't continue to pick up the garbage and pay for the disposal. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
That's not what they told you on that day?
No, that is not correct.
So the people that testified for the commissioner who was there, along with county council, their testimony is mistaken, in your opinion.
Absolutely.
So what do you remember them telling you on that?
My understanding was they were going to reevaluate their budget in June like they normally do and see if there was any more in the budget that they can continue to help. And there was many other offers of help, John Sweet to help write grants, and other avenues that they believe they could bring $1 or $2 here or there just to be able to continue the program.
But you never sought out the help for the grants, correct?
I sought out any help that was sent to me, but nothing was sent to me until after November.
So your testimony is that Commissioner Sweet offered to help you write grants, but you never followed up on that and went back to him and asked him if he would help you write grants?
The follow-through was more on his side.
Okay, so your testimony is that he never sought you out and helped you write grants.
There was just no steps further done after that conversation.
Okay, on either side?
No grants were available as far as we could find for what I do, because nobody does what I do.
Now, we also heard testimony from Miss Westgard, who stated that she had tried to help you and extended, her offer to help you write grants. Did you take her up on that offer?
She never offered to write grants for me.
Now, in the April meeting, the commissioners talked to you about getting written permission from the private landowners, and you responded that you didn't think that that was going to happen because you contacted some of them and they weren't willing to help you financially. Is that correct?
I mentioned that they weren't going to help financially, and I let the commissioners know that I had verbal approval, and they told me I need written approval.
So you had approached these private landowners on, I'm assuming, Libby Lane and Olive Barber roads and sought out their financial support?
I sought out any support I could get.
Yes, so you did seek out financial support from these private landowners?
Support to at least remove the trash, and financial support if possible, yes.
To help fund you, correct?
To help fund the cleanup program, yes.
And you testified that, so when you go out to these roads, what my understanding of your testimony is that you pile up, put it in bags, and then you take it onto the shoulder or the side of the road and someone comes and picks it up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I consolidated the trash and set it in a safe position for pickup.
So your understanding of the agreement was that someone else would come pick it up, correct?
That was the agreement.
So after June of 2016, when the commissioners informed you that there was no longer agreement, there was no longer anyone going to come pick it up, you still continued to pile it on the side of the road, correct?
Correct.
And you assumed someone else would take responsibility of it and pick it up.
No, I was working on my own avenues to be able to get rid of the trash and tires, and actually had gotten rid of a load of tires already to a private citizen that was going to use them for a project. I was seeking my own avenues to get rid of the trash.
But when you left it on the side of the road, did you know for sure who was going to come clean that up?
I figured I would one of the days that I got a connection to be able to get rid of it, yes.
So you testified about the Olive Barber Road?
Yes.
And you testified that you had cleaned that up in end of September, beginning of October. Is that correct?
They know it was I think it was a couple days before I got ticketed, so that would be the beginning of November.
In the previously marked states 1, 2, we'll do 3 and 5. And we've heard testimony that these are photos from the Olive Barber Road that were taken on November 1st. So, maybe it's out for you. So these are what the side of the road looked like, correct?
After a period of time of the piles being left out there, yes. This was more than 3 weeks after I had done the cleanup on Olive Barber.
Okay, so these piles were out on Olive Barber for, you say, approximately 3-ish weeks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's why this pile of trash showed up, is because it was left out there. My cleanup was left out there so long it got dumped on.
So when you're talking about States Exhibit 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're seeing here is other people have added to the trash pile that you had left?
And that was the only time and the most exorbitant amount of trash ever dumped on one of my sites.
And you stated that you think, in your opinion, that these had stayed out there for approximately 3 weeks.
Yes.
And who was supposed to come pick these up?
Again, I was looking for avenues. I had locals saying they were going to put a bag or two in their trash can, and we were going to try to get rid of it slowly. 3 of these pictures are of the same pile of trash, though.
Which thing?
That would be these 3 right here, and I do know that because they came off my Facebook page. These are pictures I took.
So your testimony is that states 1, 2, and 3 are the exact same piles of trash.
This one's before we cleaned it up, and the other 2 are after we cleaned it up. And the other 2 are different angles of the same pile of trash.
But when you left those 3 weeks prior, you didn't know who was going to come pick it up. Is that correct?
No, it was still unplanned to work with the communities and whatever other entities that would be willing to help me.
So you left it on the side of the road, not knowing if it was ever going to leave. Is that correct?
I knew it was going to leave sometime. That's my mission, is to get it placed properly.
Put it on the side of the road. You had no plans of who was going to pick it up, correct?
I had plans I was going to pick it up as soon as I possibly could.
You sat there for 3 weeks. Is that correct?
The community asked me to clean Olive Barber, and
My question
yes,
is if it sat there for 3 weeks.
yes, it did.
Now, you testified that after the June 15th of 2016, after that cutoff that the Board of Commissioners gave you, that you continued picking up trash on the county easement between June and November.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Even though you knew your right-of-way permit had been revoked, correct?
The permit that relinquished them of liability, yes.
You were aware that you needed the right-of-way permit because you had gotten it in the past, correct?
Even though it wasn't actually giving me permission to be out there, I know it was revoked, yes.
So you knew that you needed one because you had previously applied for one, correct?
I was told that they believed it was necessary, but it wasn't giving me permission to be out there or not.
And that was in your opinion, correct?
And no, that was what I read on the permit itself. I read it very carefully before I signed it.
And the day that you got cited on November 2nd, on that day, after you were cited, you left your piles of garbage on Libby Lane?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Can I approach?
Yes, certainly.
Recognize this.
Yes, I do.
When did you most recently see that?
I most certainly saw this when it was added into evidence in this case.
What do you mean by that? Be specific as to when you saw it most recently.
When we went over the evidence that was being offered from you to deal with this case.
Where did this come from, if you know?
This is a picture off my Facebook page.
Oh, how did it end up in my possession today?
Through the DA's office.
Okay. What does it show?
Shows cleaned up trash, a shovel, a child in a safety vest, and a truck.
Who's the child?
Child is one of the volunteers' children, which is the Katie Staley's
So is
son.
it your testimony that this document that the district attorney provided to us as evidence is from your Facebook page?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, can I mark this as an exhibit? I didn't know this was going to happen.
Yes, they'll give you a defendant's exhibit, 101,
Can I publish it to the jury?
as soon as it's offered
No objection, Your Honor.
and received, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Your Honor, I would offer this as defense exhibit 1.
it was received. Defendant's exhibit 101.
Other than the picture that you just saw, what other evidence, I'm going to say, or what other pictures that she has brought into evidence are photos that you took?
5 of the photos we were shown pictures from my Facebook page.
Of nothing else.
May step down, sir.
Defense rests.
Okay, any rebuttal?
I believe so, Your Honor. I do know they were in a meeting at 1:30, so I would need to call them to get them over here.
Okay, and I just have to do something with the instructions anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a recess so she can find out where a witness might be.
All right.
Be seated, please. Call your first rebuttal witness.
The state calls John Rowe.
Mr. Rowe, you're still under oath. Please retake the stand.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Rowe, when you went out and made contact with the defendant on November 2nd of 2016, did you talk to him about the fact that he did not have a valid right-of-way permit?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what did you talk to him about regarding that?
I told him that his permit ended on June 15th and he didn't have a permit to be out picking up trash anymore.
Does a person need a right-of-way permit from the road department in order to do what the defendant was doing that day?
Yes, it's county code, Article 4, that any work in the right-of-way, you need a permit. On our permit, a certain list of activities are listed on there besides at the top is indemnification and stuff, but there's a whole list of items that you need a permit for, and there's room at the bottom to put special circumstances that aren't listed. If you do not have a valid permit, it's also in Article 4 of our county code that is a violation. It's a Class A misdemeanor not to have a permit.
Now, on that day, on November 2nd, did you indicate to the defendant that you would help him either get another permit or work with the Board of Commissioners?
Yes, I suggested he should work it out with the commissioners. I mean, I'm all for the trash pickup. I mean, that's helping the county, but you need to be legal to do it, and he wasn't legal. So, I mean, I'm for it, but he needed to cease and desist, and he was told not to work after June 15th in the right-of-way without a valid permit.
Were you there at the work session when the defendant was told that he needed to stop
Yes,
after June
yes.
15th? Was there any confusion, or was it not clarified enough that the county was ending June 15th of 2016? No. And after November 2nd of 2016, did the defendant ever come and get help from you to get the right-of-way permit in order to continue what he was doing legally?
I had no discussion with Raymond after the violation,
After November 2nd?
after November 2nd.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Nothing.
You may sit down. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor. The state rests.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pass out the jury instructions. The last instruction on verdict I will give to you when the attorneys are done with their arguments. And Ms. Royce, you may give the state's first argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have learned a lot about the waste disposal system here in Coos County today. And ultimately, what this comes down to is you deciding what the facts of the case are, deciding what witnesses you believe to run the stand, deciding what took place, and applying it to the law. There will not be a check mark on the verdict form about whether or not you like the defendant, whether or not you think he's a good guy, whether or not you think picking up trash is a good idea. There won't be anything like that. Ultimately today, your job is to answer two questions. There's two counts. Whether or not he's guilty or not guilty of offensive littering and disorderly conduct in the second degree. And when in deciding whether he's guilty or not guilty, the only information you're allowed to take into account is the testimony you heard on the stand from every witness, as well as the exhibits that were admitted into evidence, which you'll be able to take those back with you, review them again, and look them over while you're making your decision. Now, with regard to the disorderly conduct in the second degree, what you have to find is that the defendant, while recklessly creating a risk of causing public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm, that he created a hazardous condition by any act that he is not licensed or privileged to do. Now, I know you've heard a lot of back history on this case today. So what you heard this morning, and if what I say differs from what you remember, please rely on your own memory. I'm just trying to sum it up for you, kind of give the last argument for you. There was an agreement at some point at the beginning of 2016 where the Coos County Commissioners decided to help the defendant with his project. You heard from not only the commissioner, but you also heard from Ms. Watergate, who works for solid waste, that there was this agreement between the two that the defendant would compile the garbage that's on the side of the road, that's we heard Libby Lane, Olive Barber, those type of areas, that he would compile it, leave it along the side of the road, and that in that agreement, the county would allow less sanitation to pick it up, drop it off at the county's sub-site, and then the county would dispose of it, and that they would pay for those fees. That was the agreement. Now, you heard that from Commissioner Sweet. You heard that they kind of put it on a 2-week trial. It was going great. They still had money. They set it out for another 2 weeks and continued to allow this to happen. And at some point, about in April of 2016, they no longer had the money to waive the fees for what defendant was doing. They no longer had the financial support to be able to pay for it to be taken to the dump or to be recycled up in Portland or moved to the landfill that's in Grants Pass Medford area. They just didn't have it in the budget. They had stretched it as much as they could, but unfortunately, we're only able to cover that 6-month period. Now, you heard a lot of testimony about that April 2016 work session. And at that time, they told the defendant, and you heard that from multiple people. You heard that from Commissioner Sweet. You heard that from Ms. Watergate. You heard that from Mr. Rowe. And you also heard that from Mr. Leeds, County Counsel. They were all present at that meeting, and they heard the defendant being told that it would have to end, that their agreement to waive the fees to pick up the trash and to dispose of it the proper way, it had to end because they didn't have the funds anymore to do it. This was also followed up by a letter from County Council, and you'll be able to read that letter when you're back in the jury room because it is an exhibit. So at that point, the defendant didn't have a right-of-way permit anymore. He didn't have the legal authority to work on the right-of-way, on Libby Lane, on Olive Barber, on any road in Coos County. And he also did not have any way of getting the trash from the side of the road to the dump. But instead of figuring out a way to do it legally, he chose just to keep doing it and to not play by the rules, to not play by the ordinances or the rules that Coos County has put into place. He continued to do it anyways. Now, in doing so, he created a hazard. That's what the state's argument is today. That when he knew that no one was going to come pick up that trash, and he stacked it along the side of the road anyway, he created a hazardous situation. And a reasonable person who had been told that he cannot do it anymore until he found a way to do it legally, until he found a way to have it removed right away, to have someone pay for that, a reasonable person wouldn't continue just piling it up on the side of the road. That's not reasonable. If the defendant wanted to continue on this mission, to continue doing what he's doing, he needed to do it the legal way, the right way. He needed to get the right-of-way permit. He needed to get someone who's going to pick up the trash, or he could take it off himself. By him continuing to compile these massive tonnage of trash, which you've seen the photos, you'll be able to see them again, by him continuing to do that and just leaving it along the side of the road, not knowing what's going to happen to it, not knowing when it's going to be removed, that created a hazardous situation. And we talked about it this morning. Why do we move things out of that shoulder area, that right-of-way? Why do we not leave vehicles there? Why do we not leave garbage there, big piles of it? Because those areas are meant for people trying to get off the road. And if we have a bunch of things piled there, we now have a hazardous situation because we cannot use those for the purposes that they need to be used for. Now, with regard to the offensive littering, now, the first thing that you have to find is that the defendant intentionally discarded or deposited trash, garbage, debris, or refuse on a public way. Now, you heard that the Olive Barber Road is a public way, and you have the photos of the trash, the debris, the tires, the mattresses that were left on the side of the road in that public way, in that right-of-way shoulder area. Now, the state's not arguing that the defendant intended to degrade the beauty or that they intended to create an unsafe situation. I'm not arguing that. And you don't have to find that he intended to do that. What you have to find is that he intentionally discarded or deposited the trash, garbage, debris, or refuse on a public way. And I would argue that he did. He admitted that he had done the Olive Barber trash way. He admitted in those photos that he even took some of those photos. That was his work. You heard from Mr. Rowe, who stated that those bags are very specific to his organization. He knew what he was doing. He was picking up trash, he was compiling it. And he just assumed that it would be someone else's problem once he did that. And you heard his testimony that those things must have stayed there for 3 weeks. 3 weeks on the side of the road. And no one touched them. If anything, people thought they were garbage piles and added to them. That was his testimony, that they had added garbage to his pile of garbage. You'll be able to look at those photos again, but that's degrading the appearance of the beauty of the side of the road by just leaving the garbage with no plan, with no means of getting them out of there, with getting them to where they need to be. That is offensive littering. And he knew what he was doing. He knew in November that there was no type of system set up to come pick those up and discard them properly. And he did it anyway. Because the rules don't apply to Mr. Furr. And that's what he told Mr. Rowe. He said, no matter what, I'm going to keep doing this. Arrest me 100 times, I'm going to keep doing this. There is a right way to go about what he wants to accomplish. All he had to do was play by the rules, to get the permit, to figure out who's going to financially support this project, who's going to pay for it to get dumped, for it to get moved. But he didn't want to go through that legal process, that right process. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. And unfortunately, under the law, he can't do that. He can't just pile trash on the side of the road and say, not my problem anymore. I'm going to ask you to find him guilty of both charges at the end of this. Thank you.
Ms. Dare, you may give Mr. First closing argument.
Thank you. Well, you heard a lot today. I don't want to go over the whole set of everything that you've heard. You're intelligent people. You know what you heard. You know what you're reading. Let me just make a couple of points for you. Where was the recklessness in what he did with regards to his disorderly conduct? Recklessly, and when I used to teach criminal law, I defined recklessness as, I just simply don't care. Well, this man cares, okay? He has done this on his own for over a year, until he got stopped because suddenly the county money dried up. I asked the road commissioner, maybe it was the commissioner, why did you start in the first place then? I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. Where was the public inconvenience that disorderly conduct requires? There were no complaints. There was testimony that nobody had ever complained about anything on the side of the road, ever. Where was the road hazard? Were there accidents? No. He testified himself that he took trash after they cut off his funding, and he found ways to get rid of it. And if it sat on Olive Barber for 3 weeks, after, 8-10 months of picking these things up daily, it fell to the cracks, okay? It happened. He doesn't deny it. Was he trying to degrade the beauty of Olive Barber? Or of Libby? You've driven down those roads. You know what they look like. You make that decision as a jury. With regard to the behavior in getting the permit, I never saw the permit. I don't know what it said. You don't know what it said. I got nothing. I know nothing more than what you know about this permit. So Mr. Rowe testified that he violated some code and by doing this, and then it was a misdemeanor. But they didn't charge him with that. They charged him with this. You saw the pictures. You heard the testimony about the pictures. Decide for yourself what they show, okay? There were one group of pictures from one time. I don't know if you've ever driven down any of those roads, but, you know, it is what it is. As you go back into that jury room, I want you to do exactly what the prosecutor said. I want you to follow the law. I want you to follow the letter of the law. And if you as people can think that all of these criteria have been met, every one of them, then find him guilty. But if there's even one that he's not guilty of, you have no choice but to find him not guilty. Because they have to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And they haven't done it. But that's your decision. Thank you all for your attention today.
Ms. Royce, you may give the state's final argument.
You as a jury decide whether or not this on the side of Olive Barber degraded the beauty of Olive Barber. You get to decide that. And there's not just one photo, there's 7 photos. And you can decide whether or not it's the same pile every time. That's up to you. I would submit to you that the photos don't have similarities. Yes, they are the same garbage bag, but look at what's around there. There's 7 piles of trash that the defendant picked up from somewhere nearby, compiled into a new pile, and left on the side of the road for up to 3 weeks, maybe longer. You get to decide whether or not this degraded the beauty of Olive Barber Road. Now, the state would argue that the recklessness, that there are some components to the recklessness, and you heard Judge Barron explain those as well, that the person has to be aware and disregard a substantial and unjustifiable risk. The defendant was aware of what was going on. He not only was at the work session, he also received a letter in the mail from county council. He knew that there was no more agreement. There was no more system that the county was going to pick up the trash. And I understand that there was a financial burden, right? Someone has to pay for the garbage to get disposed of. Any person that has garbage service at home pays for that service. We have to pay for it. It's not a free thing that we can just get our garbage picked up. It has to be paid for. Now, the county was willing to pay for that up until June 15th of 2016. They liked what he was doing. They liked the purpose behind what he was doing, and they were willing to find some funds in their budget to cover what the defendant was trying to do. And they did that. But they told him in April that they were only able to do that until June. That after June of 2016, the defendant was going to have to figure out an alternative means to continuing his mission. Now, the state's not arguing that the defendant cannot go out and pick up garbage, right? We see garbage every day. It's an admirable thing that the defendant wants to go out and clean up our environment. I'm not arguing that he shouldn't be allowed to do that. What I'm arguing is that there's a right and a wrong way to go about doing that. The defendant could have gone about the right way of doing what he wanted to do. He could have worked with the Board of Commissioners. He could have gone with Ms. Westgate and talked with Commissioner Sweet about grant writing, about possibly getting some financial support outside the county to continue doing what he was doing. He could have talked to the people down in Curry County. You heard Ms. Westgate talk about a program in Curry County that picks up trash volunteers. You also heard about this Adopt a Highway program, that the county will give him all the supplies to walk along the right-of-way and pick up trash, and the juvenile department comes along and picks that up as well. There were several programs available to the defendant to help accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. But the defendant didn't jump through those hoops. He didn't want to apply for the right-of-way permit. He didn't want to apply for the grants. You heard him that he didn't think it was his responsibility. He thought that Ms. Westgate and Commissioner Sweet should have approached him and really helped him do the grant writing. It's his program. He's responsible for figuring out the details. And he didn't do it. After June of 2016, he just chose not to care. He assumed it was someone else's responsibility. And that's why all of this was left along the side of the road for up to 3 weeks, maybe longer, because he didn't plan out who was going to pick this up. He did not plan out who was going to come take this massive amount of garbage off the side of Olive Barber, because he didn't care. He did his part. He put it in bags, put it on the side of the road. Now it's someone else's problem. And how does that make him any different than the people who threw this stuff there in the first place? That's littering. He wasn't picking up garbage, he was moving it. He moved it from point A to point B and stuck it along the side of the road with no means of picking it up, no resources of picking it up. You heard all of his donations were not for dropping off garbage at the landfills or at the Beaver Hill station. The donations were to pay him, to give him a form of support. You heard him. He's not employed right now. This is his work. You heard that he went to the commissioners wanting to get paid for doing this. He didn't have the plan. What he had was the garbage bags that he filled up with garbage and stuck them along the side of the road, and then he made it someone else's problem. Well, that's a public inconvenience. All of these along the side of Olive Barber Road is a public inconvenience because now someone has to do something with this. Just like that vehicle that we can't leave on the side of the road, someone's got to move this. But in the defendant's eyes, it wasn't his responsibility anymore. He had done his part. He had compiled it. Now he moved it on to someone else. But I ask you again, how does that make him any better than the people that put it there originally? He may have moved the garbage into a centralized location, but he made no plans to move it off of the road. Ultimately, you can decide whether or not you think that this act, that the testimony that you heard, that the entire agreement between the defendant and the county and the lack of funds and what happened in November, whether or not that constitutes a crime. And I would argue that with the defendant knowing that he didn't have the county support anymore, that he didn't have a financial backing, that he knew there was no one that was going to come pick up these bags of trash, that he knew exactly what he was doing. And he told you, he assumed that someone else would come get it. Assuming is not enough. The defendant needed to figure out plan A through plan Z to get it to the garbage deposit area. And he wants to tell you that he figured out plan A and B, but had no clue how to get to plan Z, but figured that someone else would come up with it. Someone else would step up. Once again, what he's doing is admirable. clean up the environment. We are not saying that that is a crime. But he has to go about it the right ways. He can't just pile it up on the side of the road and leave it there for a period of time so long that other people added garbage to it, and then say, not my fault, not responsible. Then who's responsible? He's the one finding the garbage, moving the garbage, and leaving it on the side of the road in huge heaps, huge piles. And please go back and read that letter that county council sent to him. County council warned him that if he continued the behavior and didn't have the means of picking it up, that he could be charged with offensive littering, that this could be a criminal action against him. But he didn't care. He was only concerned with his portion of it and did not follow through or plan the rest of it. Because to him, it was someone else's problem once he had piled it up and stuck it on the side of the road. And that's offensive littering. That's disorderly conduct. He just left it there and made no plans to move it, and it sat there for at least 3 weeks. Just sitting there. Every person that drove by saw it. There was no plans to move it. But once again, he doesn't play by our rules. Because he's allowed to do what he wants to do, but doesn't want to face the consequences for his actions. And I would ask you to hold him accountable. If he wants to go about this, he needs to go about it the right way. He needs to get the right-of-way permit. He needs to figure out who's going to haul the garbage off and who's going to pay for it. And the county helped out as much as they can, but at some point, they didn't have the money anymore. And at that point, it was his responsibility to figure out the next step. Instead, he just continued piling garbage on the side of the road and left it there. He can't do that. He has to go about this the right way. And I would ask you to hold him accountable and find him guilty of both crimes. Thank you.
Turn to the last instruction on verdict, please. Go to the jury room and begin your deliberation.